Alright, so our last new section of the chapter, pairs of angles. So we have a few different pairs of angles. Some you've heard of before, I think. So we have complementary. And it's two angles that add to equal 90 degrees. And 2 is important. So it can't be 3 or 4 or 5 that add up to 90. It has to be just 2. Supplementary. Are two angles that add up to 180. And these complementary, supplementary come up throughout the chapters. So these are kind of two big ones to remember. Adjacent angles. Adjacent just means next to. So if you had three angles like that, you could say that angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent, angle 2 and angle 3 are adjacent, but 1 and 3 are not. Okay. So sometimes complementary angles are adjacent next to each other. Sometimes they're not. They don't have to be adjacent. Many times they are, but they don't have to be. Same thing with supplementary. Most of the time they are next to each other or adjacent, but they don't have to be. So in a figure, if you had one angle in one part of the figure that was 80 and another part was 100, then you would have supplementary angles. They may or may not be adjacent. Okay, so if you had a picture like this, it's kind of hard to read. So if it said one is 4x plus 8 degrees, the other is x plus 2 degrees, there's a few different ways you could attack this one. In the directions, it might say angle ACB and angle ACD. Oops. Are supplementary. You'd have to have some more information in certain cases, but this one you could argue that angle BCD is a straight angle. We've talked about that before. And a straight angle means it's 180 degrees, that whole thing. If it tells you, excuse me, if it tells you that angle ACB and ACD are supplementary, then you can conclude they are 180 degrees also. So we're going to add them up, and they're going to equal 180. So as I've stated before, we have these geometry definitions and so forth, and a lot of times we end up creating an equation and solving it. So combine like terms. Solve the equation, subtract the 10. Just kind of making a lot of mistakes today. Get 170, divide by 5, and x equals 34, I believe. And so again, be careful to answer the question. So if it said solve for x, we're good. If it said what is angle ACB, then you got to plug it back in. You know, if it asks for the other one, but so I would do 34 plus 8. So 4 times 34, 120, 136, and we get 144 degrees. So just make sure that you answer the question. Okay, so complementary, supplementary, those are big ones. We have a couple other big ones as well. We have something called a linear pair, and this one goes hand in hand with supplementary. You can go back and forth with these. So linear, that means line. So the angles make a line, just like the last picture. So angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. Okay. In the definition in the book, the angles in a linear pair are supplementary angles. You can go back and forth. Oh, they're supplementary, therefore they're a linear pair. They're a linear pair, therefore they're supplementary, therefore they're 180. So you kind of have these like three, the 180 degrees, the supplementary, and the linear pair. They all work together. Okay. The other one, and this is a big one that comes into play quite a bit just at various times, vertical angles. And when you hear vertical angles, I want you to think of the letter X, because that's kind of what you're going to see for vertical angles. Angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles, angle 2 and angle 4. So it's the ones that are across from each other or diagonal from each other, it just depends on the picture. Okay. So you'll have some problems today. Let's see if I can draw this good. That will just ask you to identify different pairs of angles. Okay, so you know, in this picture, if I wanted to know like linear pair, I could say angle 1 5. I could say angle 4 and angle 5 because they both are on a line. Okay. If I wanted to know vertical angles, okay, sometimes it's tricky when there's more than one, there's different lines around. So if you look at this one, I should use a different color, but and this one, there's your X. So I would say that the vertical angles are angle 1 and angle 4. So the 5 with the 2 or the 5 with the 3, like those don't make an X. So we can't like say those. Which ones are adjacent? Well, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 1. All those that are next to each other. So you'll have some problems where there's just a picture that you can kind of name the angles from. But a lot of today in certain parts is going to be kind of doing some algebra, like on the last slide. Okay. So if you had this picture, it's kind of similar to the angle addition postulate that we did yesterday. But if you had 7x plus 4 degrees and 15x minus 2 degrees, and it was labeled like that, okay, so when you see that, that means it's a right angle or 90 degrees. So I can add those two things up to make 90 degrees. Okay, and then it's solve the equation. So combine those, 22x, combine those, positive 2, subtract the 2, divide by 22. So again, if it said solve for x, you're good. If it said find a particular angle, I didn't label those with, any, A, B, C, D or whatever. Just because I wanted to make the point of if you see that box, that means 90 degrees, add them up. Okay. So, some of the problems are just going to be identifying. Some are going to be just with numbers. So if it's supplementary, this one's 138. What's the other one? 180 minus 38. And then some of them will involve an equation, like a couple of the ones that I showed you. Okay, but it does definitely go with yesterday's angle addition, and even back to segment addition. We're looking at different pictures and we're creating an algebra equation to solve. So that's going to be not in every chapter, but that's going to be a theme that gets used throughout the year. So here's this geometry thing, create an equation, solve the equation. All right, so you know, on the ones that are just numbers, if you just write the answer, that's fine. But on the ones that involve the x's and so forth, gotta show your work on those. Okay, and there are some where you're just identifying, you know, which one's a linear pair, so there's really not any work to show there. But if you draw the pictures, that would be fantastic. Okay, all right, so tomorrow we'll start to review all the sections again, and then you will have a quiz, like I said, on Friday over sections 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and it'll be on big ideas again. All right, so let me know if you have any questions along the way. Shoot me a message in Canvas, an email. Otherwise, have a great afternoon. Take it easy.